He's tricking him out.
Did you guys see that?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
That was pretty funny.
I can't hear myself.
He's like, what?
Even if I have to say so myself, that was pretty funny. I threw Dick for a loop.
Our intros are always interesting.
I forgot who I was talking to. It was either like Kevin or Jared.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I really hate my voice when it comes in from the music. Because it's just like, the music is like epic. And then my voice is like, whoa, hello.
We hate it too. So.
I know everyone does.
Good evening,
I
folks.
get the emails. Well, welcome to another episode of Can We Three Agree? I'm your host. No, I'm just
Hostess
Dustin
with
Bass.
the mostest.
I'm not a hostess.
Oh.
We're all related, so
Yeah.
we've got that going for us.
I'm Dustin Bass. That's Brandon Bass. That's Stephen McDonald. We're family.
Back again.
And that's Dick in the corner. Didn't somebody say that like they like the jokes that I make
They
about
do
Dick?
like that. Yep.
Yeah, the
Yep.
dick
They
jokes.
like when you reference his name throughout the show.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So this is
Welcome.
going. Last week, us three got together, had a discussion.
Nice.
I thought you were going to say, say the name. Thanks. Thank you.
Got that out of the way.
Did you get that on camera?
Well, he put that on the note.
I did.
So it's like
I put it on our notes this week. Welcome.
And what's funny is I didn't even look at it.
Yeah.
It's
No.
just natural.
It's ingrained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
After last week and the abuse I received. So we had a discussion. Do you want to talk about that? Do you want to mention, what we more or less discussed? Like you and I discussed it, and then Stephen, was on, like felt the same way when us three met up. It's like, yeah, we're here.
Okay,
And we
yeah.
feel like we've been over here for a little bit. You want to address
so,
that?
I mean, and I think we all felt the same way. We needed to kind of move on. When we got together originally, we were kind of just going over things that we felt like the Lord was kind of letting us see in the scriptures, and then even in and comparing it to what's going on in the world. And
Yeah.
and we did an episode early on, which we thought would be interesting in the sense that we were trying to expose people to prophetic voices, prophecy, and chemical mint, and
In particular.
in particular, right? And so that one went from, hey, this guy nailed basically the Trump prophecies for him to move into the, and so it was like, look, and there was one.
And Mark Taylor. I'm sorry. I
Had to
love
throw
you.
that in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
You
so
know who that's for.
know what I mean? But and if anybody has ever seen him, he says that quite a bit.
Oh, really?
Oh God, like
I thought it was
know what I
Ernest-
mean?
Annoyingly.
I thought
Yeah,
it was
like
Ernest
I-
P. Worrell.
yeah. Well, I think he
That's where
probably.
he got it from.
I was gonna say, yeah. After the angel visited him, Ernest must have visited him afterwards.
Came back from the dead.
You know what I mean? But anyways, we just felt like we wanted to show people, and there was in one of the prophecies it mentioned, and I will put at his helm 2 terms.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then the floodgates opened for the last 2 or 3 years of voices saying Trump's going to win, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Like it was just nonstop, and so we got a lot of pushback on, hey, what happened? And it's like, and we just feel like we need to move on from it, but we don't really, at least me personally, I don't take a step back. I feel like God has allowed me to see and hear what I needed to see and hear
Me too.
concerning
Yeah.
that particular prophecy.
Yep.
And I believe it'll play out, but that's as far as I really want to say. I mean, we're not going to do any more shows trying to help you settle in your
this is a
spirit
long
what
walk.
happened. Right,
It's a long
exactly.
walk.
Yeah.
So
Whenever people would ask me, like, hey, what happened? I would be like, look, according to my research and everything that I had looked at,
correct. We're all in this together, folks.
We're the ones with the question marks on our head, like, what happened?
Yeah, but we're all in this together. That's what we're trying to, always let people know that, man, this is all a mystery to all of us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, from the,
That's why we need
before
each
the
other.
foundation of the world.
Yeah. So we felt like we needed to move on, and man, let's get back to
Yep.
some of our
purpose,
roots and
more
the
or less,
purpose
behind
of
the
what
show.
of the
Yes.
show, and
doing it together.
and yeah, we'll keep an eye on things, but
Right.
right now we feel like this is the direction we want to go, and I hope you guys enjoy that direction with us.
Yeah, so we're wanting to sort of get back to the roots, which would be the Word of God, which would be the Book of Revelation, the Book of Daniel, Exodus, sort of those prophecies,
Ezekiel.
and sort of
Ezekiel, yeah.
Yeah.
What did I say?
Exodus.
I'm sure we could.
I'm sure we could fill. Yeah, I mean, we did talk
Pharaoh,
about.
I think, was like an antichrist, right? Like,
Well, we did talk
Don't
about
look at me right now.
the parting of the Red Sea and tying that
There you
in.
go.
Yeah,
You're right.
The Egyptian.
Getting the
Stuff.
slaves back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough.
What
It's
are
tough
those?
being
The
on this show.
Sphinx or whatever? How'd they create those?
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
whatever?
exactly.
You know.
It's
all right.
not easy.
We'll keep you in
How
line.
did they do the pyramids?
There you go.
Nobody knows. Aliens.
I have heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of.
I've heard good things.
They were requiring mountains in a desert, and so they were like, we got to build mountains for these
Yeah.
guys.
I
So-
can't see
They're
a
gonna
thing.
stomp
Let's
us
make a
out.
mountain. Yeah. All right. So this week we're talking about China, more or less,
Yeah.
China.
We're gonna look at
Or-
China.
or as China. We
China.
prefer to say it. China. There's a new way of saying it.
Yeah.
So let's discuss the scripture of the four beasts and the dragon.
Yeah. I
Jump
don't know.
into
Did we write that?
the
did
book
we
of
put that one on
Book
there,
of
or no?
Daniel.
Or did we just?
No.
No. Okay. So, anyways, if anybody's pulling it up, it is Revelation 13.
Are we going to go with Daniel 7 first or Revelation first?
I'm going to start with Revelation 13 because we want to. Okay, so let's just establish this real quick, right? Tonight is going to be more or less digging into the red dragon. Okay. The reason why we're going to reference some of these other scriptures is because many people who study prophecy, what's so funny?
He coughed and pushed the
Push the
button.
button.
And I can still hear it
I
clearly.
did my job.
We can hear it. Maybe they can't hear it.
It's a little
Oh, you
faint.
can hear it.
So we want to establish the red dragon, right? Like, so that's our purpose for tonight. When people are studying prophecy, number one, no one's 100% certain of what any of this means. We do try to tie in, and most people will establish these four beasts that they see, right? They're talking about the I don't know what. Where are we at here?
I don't know. You tell us.
13, 1 and 2.
I don't know. I guess
Oh, man.
it should say, okay, the four beasts, 13, 1 and 2. There
Yeah.
you go. And it says, I'm in 12. See, that's why it should be up on this screen, man. We wouldn't be having these problems.
Welcome to our show.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, right?
2 heads.
So I think what needs to be established real quick, right off the bat, is that John is not writing stuff, not talking about stuff that hasn't been spoken of before in a lot of ways. So the things that he's seeing and hearing were prophesied by Daniel. Jesus himself referenced Daniel all the time. Like, these writings were available. So I don't want people to think that, like, one person's getting a vision, and it did happen this way, but I don't want it to be like this guy got a vision and this guy got a vision, and neither one of them, like, John didn't have any clue about what Daniel saw. He did. He had an idea. Okay, but as you see, is Revelation is significantly more intense in what all you witness as opposed to, but he references the 7 heads and 10 horns. So we're 13 and 1, and upon the horns 10 crowns, and upon his head the name of blasphemy. The beast which I saw was like a leopard, his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and his authority. Okay. So we wanted to get that established where you do see these. And here he's saying one beast is these 4 creatures as one beast, and they all have these different attributes, right? And so in Daniel, We'll let Stephen. You have that one.
No.
Thank God I brought my Bible because we.
I'm
I brought-
electronic.
Dustin-
I'm
Dustin can read it. There you
electronic.
go.
I brought my Bible.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm
then you could read
electronic.
it, huh?
We're getting back to our roots, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, so
Now I
Daniel,
just got to find Daniel.
See,
Daniel 7,
I'm
right?
already there. So
7, 3
Well,
through
why don't you
7. Well,
read
you
it?
can read it, man.
okay, well, which you want me to read 3 through 7?
Yeah, yeah.
All
just
right. So, and 4 great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings, and I watched till its wings were plucked off. And it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And suddenly another beast, a second like a bear, it was raised up on one side and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said thus to it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I looked, and there was another like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So yeah, it's tying back into, what John was seeing, which is what we, that's what the tie-in was, what we wanted to show right up first about when we start talking about China
yeah.
and its relation to the kingdoms.
The thing that the Bible talks about is is a dragon, and like I said in Revelation, it says it refers to it as the red dragon. Some of the best references to this dragon is Leviathan, and that's for the most part it's primarily in the Old Testament, but it will give you a great description of who this dragon is. The thing that I wanted to kind of discuss more than anything was something we had mentioned tonight, where the one reference in the Bible for Lucifer, right, is, and it's interpreted the morning star,
yeah.
right? And so if you read in Revelation, I think it's 22, the reference John references Jesus as the bright and morning star, and it goes back to where I think there's a lot of imagery, verbiage, understanding that, and we see this all. Paul constantly refers to writers, whether it be, I don't know who it is, but let's just say Aristotle or Socrates or whatever. They're constantly pulling from the Greek, minds of the day and using that because they're trying to reach people who would comprehend what they're talking about.
Right.
So it goes back to what we were talking about with like these images that Elijah, when he's competing with the prophets of Baal, right? Like the understanding who Baal was, he was the god of the rain. And so when these prophets are there, they're battling, right? And it's like, who's going to bring the rain? And so, well, they referred to Baal as the angel who rode the clouds. Well, if you read Elijah, he references the Son of Man, or Yahweh, and he's riding in on the clouds. He's like, no, he's actually the one who brings the rain. He's the one that's responsible. And so I just want to make sure that people realize that these writers did use the heathen, pagan, ideas to illustrate who God was, who the true God was. Because Paul, right, he goes and he sees all of these idols, right? And he's like, these are all the gods that you worship. And they had this one idol that was for the unknown God. He didn't go over there and knock it down and say, this is for, the God of heaven, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. No, he didn't go knock it down. He said, when you worship this one, you're actually worshiping the God of heaven.
Yeah.
And so that's my point, is like, before we go and we start trying to wreck house with everything that people believe, understand that there's truth. You can use truth that they understand to illustrate, who the true God is basically what I was going to say. But,
Yeah. No, and to add on to that, I remember reading through some of Plato's works, like, it's about Socrates, but it's like Plato's Republic, and Apologia, and a few others. It's like, growing up reading the New Testament so much, and then reading Plato's works,
Right.
And you're like, oh my gosh, like
kind of mirrors.
this is what Paul was referencing. This is what Paul was referencing.
Yeah.
This is what Paul was referencing. It's very interesting, but it's connecting with people.
Yeah.
On a level.
Yeah, where they're at.
Where they are. Yeah.
That they can believe. I mean, I use that illustration constantly. I saw somebody, they made a video about communion, right? And they're like, oh, one of the most pagan things you could possibly do, right? And it's like, yeah. I mean, when you really think about it, where do you think Christ got the idea of like eating flesh and drinking blood? This was not something that the Jews or the Hebrew children are going to accept.
It was forbidden
he
to
was
them.
reaching out to the pagans. He's reaching out to the to the heathens. Like he's sitting there saying, this is for all the Gentiles, the Greeks, the people that understand that eating someone's flesh or drinking someone's blood does extend their life, does give them strength and ability and all that. And so he's like, I'm going to use this illustration so that they can understand. Yeah. If you eat of my flesh and you drink of my blood, they're like, yeah, I understand that concept. That makes sense. Now you're saying I'm going to get eternal life, meaning not only am I going to get strength and extend my life, but I'm never going to die by doing this. So just understanding that he used those same avenues to reach people. Yeah. And then like you said.
And it's interesting, like when warriors of various kinds back whenever they would kill an animal or they would kill a human and they would eat, whatever part, they would thank that species, for whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was
that
just like
spirit of that.
And so
that
Jesus
animal,
says, do this in remembrance of me. So whenever you're doing it, don't be thinking of anything. You need to think of me.
Right.
And thank me for my sacrifice to you.
Very good.
But he was trying to talk to people where they were at, which is funny because the Jews turned around and walked off, and they're like, that's where we draw the line.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is not where we are at.
That is not where we're at, and which was correct.
Right. And Paul openly admitted that. He said God did this so that they would reject him.
Yep.
So that it would open a door for you. By you accepting me, he's believing that it's going to ultimately make them jealous. Because even going back to the Hebrew children, right? Like crying out for a king. Like all the heathen nations had kings.
Yep.
They had gods. They had these people that they were worshiping and leading. And like the Hebrew children were free. Their judges were set up, to kind of monitor, the crimes that were being done. But beyond that, like, they desired what these other people had. Yeah. And at a certain point, God said, okay, give them what they want. And they ended up getting it. Yep. Saul was a godless king, right? Like, I mean, to the point where he's like, I've lifted my spirit from you. Like, and now an evil, one of these, probably these spirits that are with these other ones are going to come and rest on Saul. So,
and it's interesting that, like David, my God, Exodus, David. It's all starting with the right letter.
He'll get there.
Thank God.
Doug.
Doug, when he had the vision, he talks about Daniel when he talks about the visions, and they had blasphemy written on them, or they had these leaders or these empires were based on blasphemy, and it's interesting that you look at the Medes and the Persians, you look at the Greeks, you look at the Romans, so their emperors, their leaders were considered themselves gods. When Alexander the Great, so far into his campaign, almost lost everything because he asked for them to conduct proskynesis, or where you prostrate yourself before God or before a person, and he was telling all of his soldiers to do that. And the soldiers were like,
No, we're not
now
going
you've
for-
gone too
Yeah,
far.
there's the line again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is strictly for the gods. You know, this is, you don't, you know.
Yeah.
And so he himself had, so all of these visions that he had of these empires based on blasphemy, like they were blasphemous empires or blasphemous people or led by blasphemous people who considered themselves God. Yeah, it's interesting that to an extent with Daniel and then going into John, you think of empires that have risen just as of late, or you have Stalin, to where it's like no God, you know, except there's the state is God, sort of like China.
Yeah, China's
you know?
right there right
so
now.
it's interesting. It's just like different. It's a different version of blasphemy, but it's
Yeah.
still blasphemy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that I would definitely go as far as to say, like with the Hebrew children, when they, you know, in Amos, you know, God's fixing to tell them, hey, you guys are fixing to go through slavery and all that stuff. Because why? Because you continue to sacrifice to Molech and all these other.
Yep.
And when you realize that these, you know, I mean, when it talks about the kings and who they served, and it constantly says they worship foreign gods.
Yeah.
Like they worship gods that they were not supposed to be worshiping. You're supposed to worship, you know, and there would be a king occasionally. It's like, okay, he followed in the gods of his father, right? Like, but for the most part, none of them did.
Yep.
They didn't serve God. And so at a certain point, going back to what we're talking about with Elijah and the Baal prophets, right? Like, so the way God helped determine, right? Like that, who was the the angel that rode on the clouds, who was the one who brought the rain. God just created a drought and said, okay, you just won't get rain for 3 years. And so that's how he established. You can sit there and you can cut yourself and you can do all these
Yeah.
things to try to get the rain, but it's not coming until I tell Elijah. And so finally Ahab went to Elijah. Like Ahab, Jezebel, they worshiped all these gods. But they finally came to him and said, please, will you go and talk to God and send the rain? Like it's 3 years. And so Elijah finally, you know, he goes up to the mountain, he prays. And then we know the story where finally he keeps sending a servant and he sees
The size of a man's hand.
Yeah.
A cloud.
and that's all it was. Like, I mean, when you think about a clear sky and you see that, and that's supposed to tell you that the rain is coming.
Yeah.
Rain's coming.
One single
Prepare
small
for a
little
flood.
cloud.
Exactly.
And then he raced the chariots back. Yeah.
And so,
Fast, very fast.
Didn't he beat them or something? Yeah.
And
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was Jehu, but so I mean, I just want to make sure that people understand that there are references to, like you said, gods, right? Like, and these were true gods. These were beings that were worshipped. You know, it's one thing for you to sit there and say, you know, these idols, they're not going to answer you. They're not going to talk to you, right? They knew that.
Yeah.
But they knew that there were spirits that were attached to these, you know, these idols. And they would hope that they would sacrifice enough that these entities would kind of respond to them. And that's funny that you even say that. It's like Paul makes that reference. Be a living sacrifice, right? Like, I mean, you're supposed to be walking around as a living sacrifice. When you start looking at the wording, it's constantly reaching out to these people that don't believe.
right, but terms that they understand.
Yes, exactly. And so I think if you can grasp that, you know, he brings, when he's talking to the Hebrew people and the Jewish people, he uses their kind of terminology. But then when he goes to the Greeks, he uses terminology that they understand.
Yep.
And so we realize that, you know, there's times where he's confronting the Hebrew people about their sexual immorality. And he's saying, you know, it's so bad. You guys are involved in things that the Greeks would blush over.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
like, he's like, what kind of freedom have you found that you're just doing whatever?
Christ came to make you free, but
Not that free.
Not that free.
You sickos.
Isn't coffee supposed to be hot?
Not that high.
Not that hot.
You know, it's interesting because we talk about, we go all the way back to the days of Samuel when the people were like, give us a king. We want to be like everyone else.
Right.
And that's more or less like Leviathan. That's like the world, you know. Satan, the world, you know, and
And its system. Yeah.
exactly you're supposed to be separated apart. That's what the Jews were.
Correct.
And so then they bring that system into their nation, right? And obviously Leviathan is mentioned a lot in the Bible, and then it's brought back in as the dragon. And it's interesting that China is considered the dragon. And there was a book by Thomas Hobbes, which was, I want to say he wrote it sometime during the 18th century, early 19th century. I think it was the 18th century, though. He wrote a book called Leviathan, and it was about the power of the state, the government, more or less.
Yeah.
This is the eventuality. And he was more or less, to an extent, advocating for that, but at the same time warning, eventually the state will become so powerful that it will become Leviathan, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
That is exactly what has happened, and it stems all the way back from government of old for a kingship, an emperor, a blasphemous demigod, to
Right. And but it's
now.
to create like slavery
Right.
is really what it comes down to. And so like they've had to be real creative in creating slavery, right? Like we talk about loans, like whether, you know, a home loan, or you get a home loan for 120 grand. Well, by the time you get done paying for it, you've paid 400 grand, right?
Yeah.
500. I mean, so, and then knowing that the bank has nothing to lose. Like, I mean,
Right.
they've got the building.
Yeah.
They've already paid for it. Now it's time for you to pay them back. So let's say you pay it for 5-10 years, doesn't matter. And then you default, then they recoup it, then they turn around and resell it. So they're never at a loss. And that's what the Bible references constantly. It's like the lenders, you know, or the borrower's always slave to the lender.
Yeah.
Like you'll never flip that upside down. Even when you pay it off, like we talk about it, then you become just slave to the state. You got to pay your taxes. If you don't, what's going to happen?
they're going to take that away from you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. If you can see it as Leviathan, like you kind of like, what is that? Wasn't there a J-Lo movie, Anaconda or something like that?
Oh God.
It was a really good movie, too.
I think John Voight
Ice
was in
Cube.
that. Yeah,
Ice Cube, John Voight.
Yep.
J-Lo.
But that's
Is that
what
the
it
90s?
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that the 90s?
It was
yeah,
the
the 90s were
90s.
good
Okay.
to all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when
different-
J-Lo was kind of cute. Like, I mean,
She's still gorgeous.
I don't know.
Dude, she's like 50,
She,
55.
no,
She's
no. If
still
you're
stunning.
oh, if you're slapping an age on there, absolutely.
If you're
right.
slapping the
I don't need to
age on
slap an
these,
age on any of it. I mean, she didn't look that.
no.
No.
Adrenochrome works.
All right.
You're a sicko. You would know.
But that is
freak.
the Leviathan. Like it does, it wraps around,
Yeah.
and it slowly but surely is to squeeze the life out of you.
Yeah.
And if you can grasp that, you know, people will kind of understand the reference where it constantly talks about the serpent, like right, you
Yeah.
know that serpent like idea. All of these things that China implements. China. It does. It's meant to make you a slave. You know probably more about it when it comes to the credit scores and
Well, it's their social credit system that they base their whole life on now. I mean, China, 20 years ago just basically said, we're going to go in that direction. And really, with the help of quite a few people all over the world, basically kind of turned into a guinea pig of what, control would look like from a singularity standpoint, which would at China's rate would be the state. And capturing cities with, cameras. And then, okay, after the cameras, how do you manipulate people to control them? Well, you put in a system in place where you report your neighbor and you do all these things, and you do something wrong, your system goes down. You don't get to travel. You can't, get on subways. You can't. There's like all these things you can't do. If you do good, then you can do things. I mean, that's their system of control that's been in place for a while, and it's only getting worse and worse and worse. And so when we look at Revelation, and the dragon that, Revelation and John speaks about, and it talks about the dragon giving over control to the beast. You can see where, China is doing a really good job of teaching the globalists how easy it is to manipulate countries and under an umbrella of control, especially with, they do it all with the phones and the technology that's available right now. And so they're giving a good example of it. And, like you talked about, like the pressure and the oppressiveness that it kind of feels right now. And we're in America. So we look at China. These poor people over there, just the amount of oppression that's happened in the last, let's just say 10 years, since the Obama days that kind of, came in. They really ramped up, because that was the birth of their social credit system. But remember, we talked about, like in show 4, when we were talking about all of these different technologies coming into play, they couldn't get it all intertwined until D-Wave invented the quantum computer, because the supercomputers weren't fast enough. They couldn't deal with all the data. Well, now they have no problems. And in fact, they've, a couple of months ago, I think we have an article up on our thing, Dick, if you could put that up, where it talks about, it's the next one, not that one, the next one down, where it talks about China's quantum computer now 10 billion times faster than Google's Sycamore prototype. And this was in December of 2020, so this is just a month ago.
How fast is that?
Like,
all right, quantify that.
Yeah.
Like, is that like
in layman's terms?
Yeah, in layman's terms.
Is that a jet compared to a snail? Like, I need to kind of picture this.
Jet is 10 billion times faster than that snail.
Well, that's the problem with how fast this technology is moving, is when you're talking about one quantum computer being 10 billion times faster than another quantum computer.
Yeah.
You've really kind of lost. There are no words for like people like us to compare. Like, how fast is this?
Yeah.
They put
Except
it in
for maybe a jet.
Like,
and a snail.
if you wanted to reference the article, you can go read the article. We'll put the links on, but it does say in there that the largest supercomputer on the planet right now, it's 100 trillion times faster than that computer.
Than this one?
Yes.
Is that the one that belongs to the Vatican?
The beast.
So that's the technology.
And that's what I was going to say. What do you need a computer that fast for? Streaming, like
streaming,
Netflix. Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Like, no, and in reality, like,
what do you need a computer that fast for?
Yeah, but when we're talking about the entities and things that we've talked about that are coming, and all of these different forms of wickedness that are coming, like that's where these technologies are going. Like, people don't understand that these technologies are going to be used to oppress the whole globe. That's when Revelation, when John says that no man is going to eat, he ain't going to buy, he ain't going to sell. That's what's coming, is because if you look at China right now, China is living out Revelation before any other country.
Right.
We're talking about this stuff like it's coming, and China's living through it.
Right.
And Americans are like, oh, well, Revelation is far off. Not to a Chinese living under oppression, under this, that can't buy and sell and do all these things.
You're right.
They're living in this right now.
Yeah.
And so we better wake up on our side and go, man, we've got a lot of catch up to do as Americans and as American Christians to prepare ourselves, which we always talk about in this show, man, spiritually prepare and physically prepare and emotionally prepare and all these things. That's what we talk about, being prepared, because this stuff is coming whether you like it or not. Now, for America, it might be 10 years off, 12 years off. But it's coming.
Well, it might not be that far away, because if we think that, if we think, let's not say we think, let's say we know that China just literally ripped off the president of the United States. Let's say that they figured out a way to,
Yeah.
and we talk about unrestricted warfare. Like what we experienced in 2020 would have been unrestricted warfare. It affected every avenue that you could deal with, whether it be the medical, with your health, school, government,
Social media. Yeah.
social media. Then we started dealing
Politics.
with race issues. Then we dealt with everything that you could possibly deal with
In 1 year.
in 1 year. And so they were just trying to create terrorism, right? Terrorism is nothing but being led by fear. And so if you're battling that, we're still battling it today, double
Friends,
mask
family,
and all these crazy ideas that it's like, well, it's not a bad idea. And I mean, my poor kids, we were riding the other day, and like this poor woman, she's riding down the road in her car, double mask. Sadie's the one that brought
Shut
it
up,
out.
really?
She goes, Dad, she's got 2 masks on, like the 2 straps, and she had her 3 children, 1 in the front seat with her and the 2 in the back, and they were all masked up. And it's like that poor woman is doing everything that she knows to do
Yeah.
To destroy
protect.
her child's life. Yeah.
Well,
But in her mind, she's
I
trying to do
know.
everything to
Yeah.
protect them.
Correct.
And it's like, this is what they're doing to these
They are.
simple-hearted,
Yeah.
and I don't even want to call them simple-minded. I'd rather just simple-hearted. Like they're being told to do this. You've got PhDs, at the
Yeah.
yin yang. Are we able to say that?
Yeah,
Wow.
we can.
That is very, very insensitive.
Speaking of the 90s, we brought its language back.
I was trying to find a Biden. I didn't know if he had signed one saying that we couldn't use that anymore.
Yeah. Can't say yin yang.
But you just feel bad for these people
Yeah, you
because
do.
it's like
You do.
those are the ones that God is probably not going to hold too accountable for whatever they decide to do. It's like these
Yeah.
poor people couldn't figure out
Yeah.
that they live together
Yeah.
and
They do
but
life
when they're
together. Yeah.
when they're in the car,
Yep.
it's like we got double mask, we got to do these things. So the blacklist, right? Like you were talking about China's running that, and that's what
Yeah.
I was telling him. I was like, China will blacklist you. If you write something or say something or jaywalk, right? Like if you do any of these things, they will make it impossible for you to do particular things. And I'm like, we're doing it now here.
On a
Like,
lighter
you're
scale.
experiencing-
Yeah,
on a
but,
lighter
but,
scale,
but
but-
we're still doing it.
I mean, I just put a clip up of this couple getting thrown off the plane
Yeah.
because their 2-year-old daughter wouldn't put the mask on, right? And it's like, it won't be long. They're going to say, you don't believe the science, you don't buy the science. You either believe
Yeah.
what we're telling you, or you're going to be blacklisted, and you're going to start having real difficult time
Yep.
getting through life.
And
so-
there's been a people saying for a long time that science has become
Well,
America's religion.
It's the new
become
religion.
the religion.
It has. Yeah.
Is that the religion of, because he says that he worships a God that none of
Yeah.
his fathers have
Yeah.
known. I mean, is that the God that they're referencing?
I think so. Science is going to take us into areas that we never meant to be.
I believe in
You
science.
know, crossing over into different dimensions and
Because
mean,
science is now
'cause
opening
science
up the
is-
doors to so many things,
And-
doors that should not
and
be
it's
open.
funny because we talk about it like how weird we sound when we talk about it, but yet the scientists will openly talk about it.
Right.
That's the scary thing is
Yes.
that the world is going to know 10 times more than what the people in the
They're
church
the
know.
prophets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like they're not going to be concerned with what's going on, and we're all going to be sitting here and saying, "Wait a minute! I thought these guys were supposed to come in 1400 armor, like
Yeah, wait a second.
fighting
I
the
thought there was
dragon."
supposed to be a
Yeah.
beast coming out of the sea.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, our vision has all come from this King George kind of mentality, to where knighthood and stuff like that, and it's like, dude, look around.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about that tonight about just like Ezekiel and
Yeah, and what he's
and
trying
what
to
this might
describe,
be, what he might be describing, and it's based off of what he knows.
and what he's describing in Ezekiel sounds like a UFO.
It does. I mean, we were saying that. Like, okay, you tell me, does it sound like it could be a disc with lights all around it and this whatever
Vortex
coming down,
or something coming down.
could it be
Yep.
a wheel inside of a wheel, right?
With a bunch of
with a
eyeballs.
lot of eyeballs. Like, okay, which one makes more sense?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And so
I'm gonna go with a will instead of a will with a lot of eyeballs.
right. I feel a lot safer about my salvation if I understand it that way.
Yeah.
And so I think it gets to a point where we don't truly know. Like he's showing these images, and we understand some of these to be kings, kingdoms, stuff like that. No problem with those. Like there's kings with no authority, right? And it says that he gives them a authority just for a short period of time. Mm-hmm. So whatever that means. But when you're referencing some of these things, you need to understand that. I'll give you one illustration, right? In scriptures, there will be it'll be a scripture that says the Lord came before the Lord, right? And it makes no sense. Like, yeah, the Lord helped the Lord, and the Ancient of Days and the Lord. It's like in the same sentence, and he came before him and him and him. Like, and you're sitting there saying, what is going on? And a good reference point is Elohim, right? And everybody has, for the most part, understood Elohim to be like angels or God, right? Like, I mean, there's references, but Elohim is constantly used throughout the Bible for all kinds of things, and it just means spiritual beings that do not have a body. So that could be God, right? Like, I mean, it could be God. It could be an angel. Mm-hmm. It could be a demon. Like, I mean, it could be anything, mm-hmm. So if you can understand that the only word that they understood spirit to be was Elohim, mm-hmm. then you can kind of get Elohim, Elohim. Then you can kind of understand where they're coming from. And they're saying they understood this spiritual realm. And they're like, look, all I know is that it's a spirit. And so there was a understanding when it was Yahweh, they would reference it as Yahweh. But then there were other times that they just said Elohim because they just knew it was an angel, whether it was the angel of the Lord or just another angel sent by the Lord, right? So understanding that we talk about different dimensions and stuff like that and alternate alternate universes, but
But in reality, for scriptural basis, there is other realms. Mm-hmm. There's a spirit realm, and that's where when we talk about these things, we have an understanding of them from a scriptural reference. So, but when scientists are talking about them, they're talking about them as different realities and different dimensions that they're crossing over to gain knowledge from these entities, because mm-hmm. that's what they're talking about, how the quantum computer kind of really operates on. And if you haven't seen our show number 4, go back and check it out. It's got some crazy stuff in it.
Yeah.
So
people's minds were
it's
destroyed.
It'll let you know where the scientific community really is with technology and how fast they're pushing the envelopes and what they're doing and then what they're messing with. And the things that they're messing with are not good.
Yeah.
So just to really make sure that people understand what we're trying to say on this show, right, is that the 4 beasts, a lot of people have referenced these 4 beasts as nations mm-hmm. or kingdoms, right? Like the lion being, people have said United Kingdom, stuff like that. One of the things where we just read where the wings, eagle wings, were broken off of the lion mm-hmm. could
America.
be, exactly, could represent America breaking away from the UK, United Kingdom, and kind of like standing on our own. The bear being Russia, right, or
Mother Russia,
USSR, or whatever it's considered.
Whoa,
the USSR, taking it
short term, man,
taking it back.
No,
it's 90s week.
Let those people live. Let those people live.
The dragon, though, what we're witnessing now with what China is doing is they're literally moving into every continent, every nation. Yeah. They're finding ways.
It's the Leviathan, yes.
Exactly. And so
I think a lot of it has to do with what you were talking about, the borrower slave to the lender. Mm-hmm. China's becoming the lender for a lot of these countries.
Yeah.
And not asking anything in return right now. A lot of these countries can't pay back, and we know that. So, when that time comes, China is going to come calling for these things, and you don't understand. Like, a lot of people don't understand. Like, a lot of these countries are getting free things. They're getting stadiums. They're getting
Correct.
buildings. They're getting all of this stuff.
Yeah, ports.
Ports. I mean, all of these things that China is just dumping, billions of dollars all over the planet into these small countries, and that's what's happening. And eventually, it'll be the destabilization all over again.
Right.
That China will come in and go, hey, okay, we own, this, I don't know if technically it would be the country, but it would probably be the politicians and everybody running it. So we're keeping an eye on, all the countries that they're doing that with, because it's a danger to us. I mean, they've moved into the Bahamas and the Caribbean, and
If anything, they would own their financial system, which is
Correct.
just as good as being there.
Correct.
Yep,
Yeah.
which
You
is
know.
what the Fed has done. I mean, they're just using that same reference to do all this. So it's difficult to watch them kind of move in all these countries and kind of take control. But that's where, when we talk about the dragon giving over their authority globally, well, when you understand that China really is all over the globe, they're not just in China. They have, they have webbed out all over the planet. Well, when you picture this, like we said, like, another 10 years, I mean,
Right.
the web of the Chinese arms, I mean, yeah, if they're doing this in other, places, then that control is just more that. Like, how do you get somebody that's going to take over the planet like the Antichrist would, and somebody hand him control, or like, okay, hey, we're going to give you the whole system, and here's the keys to it.
Well, it's like the Chinese, the Chinese guy that sat with that financier. I think his name is Bass, Kyle Bass.
Yeah.
And he explains the way China operates, and to understand that, and we've seen it during 2020.
Yeah.
Like the doctors and these reporters either
Just
died
shut-
or
yeah.
just went away. Whether and that's what he says. You either get killed, you're either assassinated, or you're in jail, and you'll spend 20 years. And we were talking about that, like the richest people in the world in China. Hey, you say a disparaging word about the CCP, they take care of their own. And so, understanding that, like you said, this is an antichrist way of running a government. And you maintain, like we talk about this digital currency stuff. It sucks, man. Like tonight, right? Like you couldn't leave a tip in cash. Like that just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
They're going to know every dime that you spend and where it's spent.
Yeah.
If you spend it on anything that would be inappropriate, they will know, and then they will manipulate you into doing whatever you know. I mean, Google does that now. Like they track you.
Yeah.
All of us, if we've done anything on Google
Yeah.
that we're like, we probably shouldn't have searched that or looked
That's
at that
why
or done
the
that.
system is
It's like,
already-
hey,
yeah.
boom, boom, and
Our
if-
system is already operating in the same as China's. We haven't had the oppressiveness until just now, where they're, hey, we cut the president of the United States off.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, come on. If we saw that in a movie 10 years ago, we'd be like, well, that never happened in the U.S. That's
Right.
kind of overboard. And we just lived through it. And everybody was like, oh, well,
well, I'm just saying,
Yeah, a lot of
if
people would justify it.
yeah.
we give these warnings, right, to preachers and pastors and stuff like that. Like, look, dude, if you struggle with pornography, you struggle with these things, man, you need to get rid of your computer altogether. You need to get a Nokia, whatever phone,
Flip phone.
a flip phone, like, and it's no joke, because if they start trying to shut down churches,
Yeah.
dude, all they have to do is pull up stuff that
Yeah.
everybody in your church is going to leave. They're going to be like, oh my God, you've been searching this, you've been looking at that, and it's going to destroy people that have been in your church. So I've warned people. I'm like, look, if you're struggling with this stuff,
Yeah. Deal with it.
the Bible
Yeah.
talks about that. Pluck your own eyeball out, like cut your own arm off, like whatever you got to do to get in.
Yeah.
And so if people don't realize, like, you don't get to do things for free. Like, you don't get to have
Yeah.
this stuff for free. Like, it's going to cost you one way or the other. And so,
As Milton Friedman said, there's no such thing as a free lunch. you're gonna pay for it, one way or the
one
other.
way or the
Yeah,
other.
right.
Like those
Like all
countries
these
that
countries.
are all the countries that are taking the money from China.
Yeah.
It's going to come due.
Right.
And it's going to come due at their worst time. And they're, and it might be China going, okay, hey, we don't want your financial system, but we're going to bring in all of the, the social systems and the 5G and we're going to create that, that boundary for your people that, now you're under kind of our reign.
Yeah, it's like, well, how will they? It's all these different countries. Well, centralization is one of the things that we've fought against for a very long time here in America. We don't want a centralized government, but slowly but surely,
That's what we've
it's
gotten.
become a centralized government. Now, God bless Texas. We
Amen to
continue to
that.
lead the charge on like sue, fight against. We're not going to do this stuff. It's just like, man. Talk about a city on a hill. But it's like you have all these countries that are promised all this power, like not these countries' leaders given all this power. You control your people. We control you.
Yeah,
And that's how you centralize everything on a global scale.
correct.
And that in itself is Leviathan.
Right.
Now, will America go with it? Who knows? We are on the path to go right with it,
agree.
with the new exchanging of the guard.
Yeah.
And
And
very
what's scary
quickly,
is
too.
you have,
like they're in
we have our
Operation Warp Speed to do it.
well, we have our neighbors like Canada that got caught training Chinese military in Canada for like winter warfare. What are you doing training Chinese
Yeah.
soldiers at our back door? Like we're kind of in a new age when you understand the financial systems behind everything, why they were doing that. Because those financial systems that are in control are a lot dealt with a lot higher than even the mediocre politicians. These guys don't have any say-so, which is why when they were writing the letters about the IMF coming into Canada, they don't have any say-so. They're like, look, we have no control over this.
Right.
We're in government and we have no control over it. We have to sit here and take this. America's slowly coming to that point where now like the Republicans don't have any authority. And God forbid right now, if they wanted to, they could sell the soul of this nation and there's really not much we could do about it.
For the longest time, like going back after like World War One, Woodrow Wilson was the one who created the idea of the League of Nations,
Yeah.
which would eventually become the United Nations. He really wanted that.
Yeah.
It was the Senate who said, no, we're not going to do it. The International Court of Justice,
Yeah.
that was another thing that the Senate was like, okay, we'll do a few things, but we're not going to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
World War One, before and after, it was the British Parliament that was also like, we'll do some things, but we're not going to do a lot of things. It's been a downward spiral after World War II. Now America still stood strong against a lot of things, especially the Senate. But
I think you had the financial systems created that, again,
eventually it was a wearing down.
Correct.
And as they say, China, they don't do 5-year plans, 10-year
They're
plans.
long
Theirs
game.
is like a century-year plan.
That's
Theirs is a 1,000-year plan.
theirs is long game.
Yes.
We are not real good at that mentality. They are built and made for that very mentality of the generational, like, hey, this is long game outcomes, which is, I kind of learned the term years ago because I didn't understand it. I'm like, you guys keep talking about long game. Well, like when you say that, it's like no matter who's left, we have to win, even if it's 40 years or 100 years from now. Like we have to keep pushing back and we have to make sure that we come out on top. That's where China is. I mean, they are, but the moves they're making, man, I mean, or have been making over the years, I mean, just are undermining everything globally that we look at going, okay, hey, we're, even Donald Trump, I mean, as good as he was and kind of, figuring things out and everything, I mean, China still made huge strides in different countries of moving in and doing all these things. And you're like, man, okay, they just moved into another, country. And
There's Simon Sinek he has a theory. It's called the finite and the finite and the infinite game, and it's America always plays the finite game.
mm-hmm.
Other countries play the infinite game,
Mm-hmm.
where we'll just wear you down.
Correct.
And that's to an extent, and I don't want to get into it because we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But there are, and he references sort of like the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Vietnamese, the North Vietnamese were like, we're in this for the finite.
Correct.
I mean, for the infinite.
infinite.
So we're just going to be here doing our thing until we wear you
We'll
down
fight you in
and
this
you
jungle.
quit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We don't have to beat you.
Which is
We're just going to make you
exactly-
quit.
Which is exactly what happened.
Which is what is taking place with China or all these social issues or banking issues or anything like that, where Americans continue to sort of relinquish or surrender the battle or lose the battle, but always say, well, we haven't lost the war yet. And then it's like, well, when do you think the war is over? When do you think that you've lost the war? You've lost all this string of battles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Eventually, there's not going to be any more battles to fight to where you can say, well, we finally won the war.
Yeah.
You've
Well,
lost all
but I
of the
think
battles.
in an attempt to be peacemakers, though, they're like, all right, let's just give this, and you
Right.
just keep giving away till at a certain point you don't realize, man, we gave all these things away, and now we've got nothing left that we.
Yeah.
And
we
it's
can
like
claim.
that movie, Darkest Hour, when he says, you can't negotiate with the tiger with your head in its mouth.
Yes.
And
And
that's
that's the truth.
where we are.
Yeah.
Right. And if people don't recognize, like, many people can see it that they have gotten involved in everything. They've bought out a bunch of people. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people understand either, is that, number one, people can be bought out for a very low cost. We don't know, like, how low people can be bought out, but people can be bought out for nothing. Then talking about this unrestricted warfare, using women, right? Like, women in general are fine, but using women in a lustful role is something drastically different. You can put people in a situation that, and I guarantee you, most of these people in power have been put in these positions.
Yeah.
And
Epstein Island.
yeah, but I mean, that's just the one that people references,
that's-
right?
that's the one we know about.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's, China lets it be known, like, the people that have left China, let it be known that these honeypot type situations are constantly set up, and then, like, it's too late, man. And like, the pictures are sent, and so when you realize that we're all built, right? Like, when I say we all want to be, like, mankind, right? We all want to be in shameful moments, right? Like, we want to go do our own thing and live our own thing, but we don't want anybody to know that we did it, right? Like, that's just mankind. David, right? Like, King David is constantly referenced, right? Like, he sees and he gets involved in a very shameful moment, and he can't get out of it. And he's trying to get out of it, and he's doing even more shameful things to get out of it. So you see that we try to cover up our own sins, where when it comes to, like, who Satan is, right? He is the accuser, man. Like, he's just going to come at you and come at you and come at you, and he's going to have, for a lot of people, evidence. Like, that's what this system is set up for,
destructive
is to be
evidence.
exactly. So, understanding when we compare the system that China has set up for this red dragon, when it comes to, I mean, it talks about it. He's going to give him his authority, his seat, his power, like, everything. Like, he's going to give it to this man, right?
Yeah.
Which is referred to as one of the beasts. Understand that what are they trying to do? They're trying to set it up to where this is a worldwide grasp, that if I can look, man, if it happens here, then it happens here.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. We've prayed, we've done everything that we know to do, man, and we're still asking God for help. But at the same time, like, if
When
this
you
is
look
God's,
at what, Donald Trump, 4 years, I mean, he made some really good strides, did some great things. and Biden's in office for 1 week and
Yeah.
annihilates everything that was done in 4
But I don't
years.
think a lot of people really truly understood what Trump did, appreciated what he did.
We did though, and I think
Yes.
that's where we understand that, man, the strides he made and the things he's done, and were commendable.
If you were paying attention to the mainstream media,
You
sure
would not,
did.
yeah.
Right.
You would think he was a
Right.
racist and a bigot, no,
And a
but
sexist and a
exactly.
xenophobe
But
and a
but we know
homophobe and a
the peace he
Islamophobe.
brought to regions
Sorry.
and those other regions,
Say a
the
llama?
regions itself,
Lamaphobe. I don't like llamas. Terrible person.
A lot. Eat the food. What was her name? Tina. I
What?
think that's from Napoleon. Napoleon Dynamite. When he's
I've
like,
only
Eat
seen
the
it once.
food, Tina.
I've only seen it once.
Oh, really?
That is not one of the quotables for me.
Oh, kids love that part, man.
Yeah.
Where he's feeding the llama. Anyways,
He's a lamaphobe.
a llamaphobe. Yeah. I don't know. Did we show any of these articles? We can put the links.
Did you want to talk about? So we did the Google Sycamore prototype. That's how it's done. Did you want to talk about, like, touch on that a little bit more? Because that's how it seems like an impossibility. Control the world, really?
Right,
That's
yeah.
how you control the world. Because, ladies and gentlemen, this right here
Well, that's why we
is
talk
what
about.
allows
That's
it.
why we bring up things like this, because at least it allows you to understand, like, there is means of controlling the whole planet, and that's what they're doing. They're doing this in cities in China where they're basically controlling the population down to what you can do: travel, go, eat,
And if they get a stolen version of Neuralink,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
just like, they're going to do that.
yeah, and and so we're just showing you these things, but I mean, like, you had an article up that China's wanting to rewrite the Bible.
Yeah.
They started that out, I think, in 2018, making an attempt.
we could show that
Pull
article.
it up, Dick.
Yeah, we could show that article.
But understanding too that
China
that the
rewrites
Catholic
the
Church
Bible.
is kind of like stamping their approval on this stuff.
Well,
Jesus
the
stones the
Vatican,
adulterous
the
woman. That was-
Vatican.
I love it.
Let's not throw the Catholics under the bus. The Vatican is throwing their support
Yeah,
behind
there's a difference
rewriting.
between the two, but yes.
There is a difference between the
Can
two
we-
because there is a schism going on
Yeah.
with the
There
Catholic
definitely
Church.
is. I have
Yeah.
a friend who is, he was a priest of a pretty large parish, and that's one of his worries. Is like, he goes, this Pope right now, he's going to create a schism.
I think we're,
He's creating
we've
one.
talked about it. Like, I think you're coming to a point, all of us, you're going to have to choose a side. There's not going to be any gray area for Catholics. I mean, I hate to say it, Muslims. I mean, we're headed into an arena where, because I know some great, beautiful Muslim people.
Wait a minute.
Like, you're
What do you mean, even Muslims?
Well,
What do you mean,
because I think where you're going to have the Quran going to get rewrote. Like, it's not just the Bible. I think you're going to have all of these different religions that are going to have their day of, like, oh no, you can't believe
Right.
that part of whatever you believe. And
Yeah.
I mean, because let's face it, there's some good people in all religions. It's not-
religion is the
religion
only
is-
thing that separates you from the state.
That's exactly right. Because of that, that belief in yourself and what you believe
And
in.
a greater good,
And a
too.
greater
Yeah.
good, or whatever
and
that
that
is.
you
And
answer
so
to somebody higher than the state.
correct. And so that's why I don't think there's any religion that'll be off limits to what is coming.
No, it's going to be it will be one religion, and you will fall under it.
Yep.
And that's what I'm thinking.
Science.
Science, yeah.
Yeah, but it has
But
to come
it's an
down
ultimate
to,
control
right.
of, yeah.
It's the Nebuchadnezzar. Like, it will be that when the music starts, everybody must bow down, whether you believe it or not. It doesn't matter. Where we talk about goofing off, but like taking a knee, right?
Yeah.
And you saw everybody take a knee, and like this one person not taking a knee out of the entire NFL, and he becomes the story, or she becomes the story. It's like, well, why didn't you take a knee when you heard the music start, right? Like, it's the same reference, except that person will take care of that person, and that's the one that gets, as the Bible refers to, beheaded.
Yeah.
So it's very simple. Like, we're looking at it and we're saying, as Americans, right? Like, we've never experienced this, but we witness it now. Like, masks are it now. Like that is your new normal. Like we hated that term early on because people said, this isn't going to last very long. It's like, just give it 2 weeks. And then it's like, just give it another 2 weeks.
Remember back then?
We're fixing to come up on the 1 year anniversary.
Honestly, I hated those days more than I do now.
Yeah.
Because I knew.
Oh, yeah, we knew.
at
2
the
weeks to stop
onset,
the
I'm
spread.
just
You knew today was
this
coming.
is- yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
This is so upsetting that you actually believe it's only going to be 2 weeks.
Correct. Because once we gave over control and we let them push us to that point, that's it.
Yeah.
There was no
I
recovery.
knew the day that Sylvester Turner shut down the rodeo, I was like, we're on a bad path.
Yeah.
And so, and so now we're going to continue to live down this. And like we said, the vaccines, I mean, you got a billion different reports saying this stuff sucks and it's not working and people are dying from it and it's like, but you must take it.
Man.
Like they're getting it to the point where, and like I said, we talk about God's timeline and it may be at a point now, and I really do believe this. Like, it's just, we're out of time of deception. Now it's like, we're going to have to force them to do these things. And so how do we get them to do the things? Dude, for the most part, people love. Like, I mean, whether it be your family, your friends, or whatever. So you're going to do things strictly based off of love for family, love for friends. Like, and so people, I'm getting vaccines. Why? Because I want to protect my grandparents. I just want to protect my parents. Like, and they're doing it because they feel like they're protecting people.
Thank goodness our grandparents are already dead.
Oh, yeah.
Or they would be. Because I ain't getting it right. But I mean,
I was trying to go dark, and you just went
I
really
went darker.
Oh, man. Let's stay
But
quiet.
that's in this darkness rising or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, which one is this? Yeah.
That China rewrites the Bible.
So-
Back to that. But I think it's coming down to not just the Bible. I think it's religion as a whole. The Bible being one of the first, because that's everybody understands the Bible has a grip on the planet as a whole, and China most definitely, because they've waged some serious warfare on Christians over the last
Forever.
forever.
They
But
say it's roughly 20 million, I think, is what they assume is Catholic. And it's like 80 to 100 million Protestant.
Mm-hmm.
And the Protestants are the ones really getting
Hammered.
beat down.
Yeah.
But I know China had put in place, for the most part, all the cardinals and bishops. They decided who was going to.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like what, Rome? Remember when Rome was setting up their Catholic,
yeah.
And so it was basically a government-ran religion.
Well, yeah,
And that's what it's going to be.
with the
That's
help
what they're
of the
trying to set up.
Vatican. That's
Correct.
the way they've done things, and it's good to finally see good Catholic people understanding what's going on inside their religion, because it is headed into a very dark place. I mean, if you want to know what dark is, I mean, you just look at their nativity scene this year that they put up.
Yeah, it was bad.
That was
scary.
That was pretty. That was
Didn't
pretty.
see that.
It was creepy.
It was really creepy. I mean, yeah, it was even for the Vatican. It was creepy, and so you just have this disconnect with the Vatican and Catholicism as a whole, as far as like what we would view Catholicism as, which is good people, a good priesthood, and just. Yeah, not all priests are great, but hey, we won't get into that. But we're just talking as Catholicism as a whole. But the Vatican has really jumped the ship into this globalism.
Yeah.
And maybe we should be watching them to really kind of spearhead that global, religion, so to speak. So
In the world.
did you just
Did you
Google
look
it?
at
It's a freaking nightmare before Christmas.
Yes, that's what I remember. I was like,
I mean-
God, dog it, man.
I
Like,
mean, yeah, and that's the
Come on,
that's
Francis.
the leaders
but
of
when
the
you
Catholic
look
Church.
at the last 15, I would think it's between the last 15 to 20 years, like the Vatican has spent over $4 billion in settlement cases, like with all the things that's gone on with the Catholic Church. at a certain point, you got to realize that it is becoming a little too dark. And I think that's where a lot of Catholic people are getting. And we're talking about the schism. Like, I think people are realizing that that portion of the Catholic Church I don't recognize anymore. I don't even associate. Well, I mean, we all have been there, like with certain things. It's like I don't necessarily associate with what they're saying and what they're doing. I mean, and you've got it. Like we watch Live Site News and stuff like that, and those guys are constantly calling it out. Like, what in the world is going on over there? And so they'll constantly give quotes from from archbishops and
Cardinals.
Cardinal. Everybody coming out and saying, "Look, man, this has got to stop." They were begging Trump, like, "Please do something about this."
Yeah.
So
I think they were asking for a missile strike.
I don't know if you want to click on just a couple of those links too, just so people can see how often. I've got BBC. There you go. China leading, the leading dragon of the world economy. There you go. Go to the next one, maritime. That one's got the dragon takes over the South China Sea. Independent UK. Dragon awakens. China. How did you do it? And you can scroll through there. That's it gives you a list of all the things that they've done to build up their empire, right? Yeah. And so it'll just start labeling it out. Go to the next one. We did a couple. The Blaze did a story on Biden. I don't know. Well, there you go. You can click that on. That's Gravitas. They're in India. They're
When members of the Quad met earlier this month, they left on a rather disappointing note. The high point was a cake. The low point, the lack of a joint statement. Separate statements were issued by the four members: India, Australia, Japan, and the United States. Little was said about tackling China's aggression as a collective force. Well, that may be beginning to change. Members of the Quad are now giving their alliance a distinct military dimension. India has invited Australia to join the Malabar exercises next month.
You don't have to keep playing
While
it.
Japan
It's just
is arming its
you can listen to that one.
China.
We'll put it in the bottom, but she refers to China constantly as the dragon.
Yeah, she's always that station. The Indian people.
Well,
are always
they've been at it with
considering-
China for a while.
Yeah.
Which is not getting any better, especially now that Biden's
Uncle
taken
Joe's
office.
in.
Yeah, it's actually getting a little worse. I mean,
You think
got
it's getting worse?
Yeah, it
Come
is.
on, man.
It's
Come
getting
on,
worse.
man.
And then you got
Cut me a break, man.
the whole thing with Myanmar.
Yeah.
That was with the military taking over.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that you'd like to say that it's funny when you looked at what God was doing, all these peace deals and all these things.
Correct.
And Trump and Kushner were right in the middle of these things, but there was some stability underlying in the world a little bit. Mm-hmm. And you remove these few items, mainly God, because, let's face it, the left wants nothing to do with God. You put them back in power. You remove that again, that covering over not just us, but a lot of countries. And this instability that all of a sudden is starting to rear its head again, the John Kerrys and, Clinton and Obama, showing their face again on the globe going, oh, okay, hey, we're all back in charge. Like you mentioned last couple weeks ago when we were talking about the parting of the Red Sea and like, we're going to get our slaves back. That mentality of, okay, we're back in charge and, here we come. And God saying, hey, yeah, we're still in this miracle that's coming, and the left thinks they're catching back up, but what is coming is something totally unexpected. And so just this, when we're keeping up with these things, and it's you can kind of feel that shift of instability that's about to happen. And so, one right after the other. That's why we want to keep an eye on these things behind the scene and kind of keep bringing them up. It's everybody can see the stories and you can go look for them for yourself, but they mean something in the underlying fact of what's going on with China.
Right.
And when you can, and it's hard to see because people are like, well, why does that have anything to do with China? When you understand that China is the one destabilizing these regions, then you can understand why. Because they're trying to move into these countries. That's what they want. Again, they're in it for the long game. They don't care how long it takes. They're going to wear you down to put their right people in place, whether it's in corporations that they need to control, government that they need to control. I mean, they have these people placed exactly where they want them.
Well, I think it was proven too. Like, I mean, I think, what was it? 3 weeks before the impeachments were brought up, Eric Swalwell was found out to have been sleeping with Chinese spies, and he's the one overseeing the impeachment hearing. It's like, it's China saying, "There's nothing you can do."
Yeah.
Like,
He's like on the Intelligence Committee.
Yeah,
It's blatant. It's treasonous. Like when you're in bed with the enemy,
in any normal world,
in any
it
normal
would be.
world, it would be you'd be strung up for treason.
Right.
Yeah.
But in this world,
Or at least removed from office.
at least you
Yeah.
might want to step down since you're sleeping with the enemy.
Correct.
No. Instead, it's like,
well, in his defense, he faced he faced a very hard trial early into his off and being a congressman. Remember when he farted on television?
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you can face that down, you can
face anything else
with
down.
Chinese spies is nothing.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Oh man, but that's the world we live in now. Is it'll blow over. Next week will be different news. I mean, the news now. It doesn't even matter what it is. It's just here and gone. And you're like, wait a minute, that guy should be strung up, and now he's in charge of impeachment hearings.
Right. And I think that's when you're trying to be guided by morality. I think that's when you need to learn that things are kind of shifting, is when immorality kind of rules, right? Like the Jezebel type idea, right? Where these things, the true prophets need to be strung up, need to be thrown out, and everything else, and all the other false prophets need to be brought in. And so I think my thing is that when I read these scriptures and it talks about the dragon, the red dragon, I don't want people to think that if these other images of beast can represent empires and other nations and kingdoms, it's not beyond the realm of possibility when you're reading this, that when you're reading the red dragon and its authority and its seat and everything, and you recognize, go look on a map and see how large China covers, and then on top of that, how much they're involved in Africa and all these other areas, and sit there and tell me that they're not going to have this authority and this throne and all this. If they get away with this, I don't know if you can scroll down at the very bottom of that page that we sent over to you. I tried to put it on there because we already had the red dragon, and now if Biden,
it just got real. Keep scrolling.
you got to go all the way down,
all the way
man.
down.
Scrolling, man.
There you go.
Yeah,
Come
double
on, man.
double
Come on, there,
drag.
look at Joe in the blue. I just put that on there because I was being comical. But, dude, if they were to actually get away with this, and America's the only other body of authority in this world that could combat with China, then you do have the double dragon.
Yeah,
That is true.
that's not good.
You
one
know
of my
you like
favorite
that.
one of my
Come
favorite
on.
video games of all time.
Oh, my daughter loves this
But
game.
I was thinking the same thing.
Again,
Because you
the
were
90s
talking-
references this week are just out of control.
The best.
Hey, let
the
me tell you
best
something. That's
kissy
when I was
baby.
living my best life.
Because you were talking about destabilizing certain regions. Like, that's what Russia was, or the Soviet Union
Yeah.
was doing for a long time, and then
were.
they fell apart, and then China more or less was like in cahoots with them for a long time, and then followed like, okay, we're not going to do what they did wrong, we're going to do what they did right, and then do what America does as well.
Yeah.
And then America's
been great at it.
And America's been good at destabilizing regions as well.
And putting our own
And
people
so
in
it's like,
power and giving them
had
a Federal Reserve.
You had a president who came in and was like, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And now it's like, all right,
Well, China just took off.
now we're going to go back like super fast. So we got to catch up. We got a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah.
That's exactly where we're at. Like, man, I mean, it was like put John Kerry back on a plane, and he's going to be the preacher for our new religion, which is also climate change. And because we'll get into that in Revelation probably next week. Maybe we'll discuss that part of the new religion that's coming, that's already been here, that is climate change. And so you get all of these globalists back in power overnight. that where's John Kerry been for 4 years?
Hiding.
Hiding.
He made a promise to the Iranians. It was like, don't worry, when we get back
When we
in,
get back
we'll
in,
get back
we'll
to...
get your deal back on the table.
And really, climate change, if you think about it, is like black velvet. It's a religion that'll bring you to your knees.
and it's
a new
about to.
religion.
Yeah.
Nothing?
No, I
That's
do-
an 80s reference, but
But
Yeah.
we're close to the
no?
90s.
Oh,
Yeah.
good? Okay.
No, but the whole China and Iran, people don't know really just how close connected they are. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not involved in the CIA or anything like that, but all of this terrorism, on our soil, has that been worked through Iran and other areas? Like, I mean, there's all kinds of concepts that you can see China using different allies,
Yeah.
and realizing that, hey, Iran, death to
Yeah.
death to America,
They
right?
like preaching that.
So, and then it's death to Israel. So if people realize that the dragon is ultimately out to destroy God's children, like if they'll understand that they're out to ultimately get Israel, well, at a certain point, this man of sin rises up out of these 10 nations, right? And so,
Takes it on
and
himself.
he gets the authority though,
Yeah.
and the power and everything to do what he needs to do from the dragon. I understand. We all understand that it's a spiritual reference, but to realize that there are entities and beings that oversee each country, nation's land.
Yeah.
I mean, that's in Daniel as well. If you understand that, then I think that will help you to start grasping what really takes place in Revelation, and realize that it's not something that Daniel was seeing. He was trying to describe, Ezekiel's trying to describe based on their knowledge, what they've been exposed to, what they see. They're like, I've never seen anything like this before, but if I were to describe it, it looks like, and all they had was animals to reference,
Yeah.
like eyeballs. Like, I mean, it just looks like eyes blinking, right? Like, I mean, it's a lot of concepts that, a wheel, like, I mean, all throughout Ezekiel, he's referencing a wheel, like, and then that's the wheel inside of a wheel. Like, what does all of this mean? Well, it's obviously not a wagon wheel. You know what I mean? Like, with eyeballs in it. So he's just trying to explain, like, it's a whirlwind, right, coming out from this wheel. When you start realizing that moving into 2020 and beyond, right? Like, I mean, you're getting an idea of what we're capable of and what is being created. And then I don't remember what show it was, but we referenced that, like how far behind the public is
Yeah.
in what is being created and developed compared to what is really there. And
Yeah.
so that's our main thing, is like just trying to keep people looking at the
speed.
word,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, you want to reference the Bible constantly and make sure that you're following it. And so where are we? But at the same time, realizing that it's not necessarily what people are telling you this means, because no one truly knows. Like, these references,
Yeah.
they're very difficult, and we do the very best that we can to figure out what they
Exactly.
mean.
And so that's why we look at them like, if the dragon is going to give over control, what control does he have to give over?
Right.
Well, we're explaining that China, they're pretty good at what they have control right now, because they're controlling their cities really well with their social credit system and the cameras and all their stuff. So, how long till they can move that globally into these other countries?
It
And
was on its way until Trump
the
threw a wrench in the Huawei and all that, right? I mean,
exactly, which is why they stopped it. Well,
that
now
was
it's
50 nations that backed
The
out
wrench in
because
the
of Trump.
Huawei or the wing?
highway or whatever. Yeah.
Yang?
So you're
But
right.
that was 50-something nations that backed out of an agreement with China
Yep.
that they were going to, like you said, we're going to give you
we're
everything
gonna
for
give
free.
it. We're gonna give it to you. That's exactly like people are like, okay, hey, they're gonna give it to us for free. Yeah, don't you think that's just kind of odd?
Right.
That you're gonna get billions of dollars of surveillance equipment
Yeah, it reminds me of that infomercial. For free?
for free. Yeah. What gives? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So-
It's funny. Trump's the one going, hey, wait a minute, we don't want that free stuff.
Right. Yep.
We'd rather pay for our own, because he knew the Trojan horse that it was, and then
Yeah.
it still is, because there are countries that are that are taking this stuff left and right. And
Well, it's like putting a padlock or a lock on your door, and China's the only one that has the key.
yeah,
So it's like that makes no sense at all.
no,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Well, I feel safe as long as China doesn't.
Yeah, as long as the worst criminal
Right.
doesn't
exactly.
come around.
You can trust me.
Yeah.
Dude, don't do that.
Well, I think China's spending
That's from
I
Polar
hear you.
Express.
I know, but I hear you really.
me.
China's spending $10 billion a year on quantum research, and America's spending $1 billion a year. You know, so I mean, they're also, you know, really outpacing, and it's starting to show. I mean, in the technologies and the things they're really coming up with.
Yeah.
They're just kind of leaving everybody behind, which is not surprising. They've kind of always done that on the technology side. What's scary now is like this stuff is, D-Wave even said about their quantum computer is like no encryption was safe because it could crack any code. Like we're moving into a whole new arena of we're just at a standstill. That's why when they sold one to Lockheed and Martin, I was like, great, let's give the weapons builder a quantum computer. Like, that's smart. It's like all these decisions that are being made on the global scale right now are just, it's a system that's setting itself up
For the end.
for
though.
the end. I mean, that's what's
If
happening.
people can't wrap their mind around the fact that, and I know people want life to go on forever, but unfortunately it's written that it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so when you start seeing certain things, the Bible's like, prepare for these things, know these things, watch for these things. And when they start to happen, look up.
Yeah.
'Cause
Because you're in.
hopefully, hopefully something's coming.
Is that a will within a will? Like outlaws?
A whirlwind?
Yeah. Oh, man.
All right.
All
well,
right.
Double dragon.
Double dragon, baby.
Yeah.
Let's hope not.
Let's hope not. Good grief.
You guys have a good week.
It was fun. Thank you guys for all the
Bye-bye,
support.
everyone.
Appreciate it.
God bless everybody.
We'll see you next week.
Yes.